in and today we have Steven, incredible legal eagle. So he will share with us a lot, I hope,
Yep.
and
I'd love
he
to.
promised. So, hi, Steven. Welcome to Mind, Body, and Tech.
Thank you for having me. It was really interesting. I was actually one of your things flipped up this morning about sort of the connection between mind, body, and all the things you can do, resiliency. And I was like, I'm so excited for this opportunity to talk to you. So thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, can you walk me through your professional journey a bit?
I can. It's been a really interesting journey for me. So I started out as a lawyer and worked in a law firm. Worked my way up. I became a partner in a law firm, did a lot of corporate work in real estate, and then I was also a litigator. So I did that until about 2008, and then the market crashed in the United States, and I was one of the last people on the corporate team to get laid off, and that's when I really transitioned from being at a law firm and then went in-house and started to do work. I worked for Equifax, which is one of the credit bureaus here in the United States, doing all their government contracting work. And then I transitioned to a national medical lab where I was their general counsel. And I did that until 2013. And it was a really, really interesting time. One of the things I know we're going to talk about is privacy, but the company was subject to what has become one of the biggest data breach cases for its time. So, that was 2013. And so it was still pretty early. And I did that, and it was a wonderful opportunity. And then the company closed, and I did a major pivot in my career. And I became a special education teacher in a psychiatric hospital for kids with severe emotional behavioral disabilities. Which was wild. That's how much I was working. So people were like, wow, you were really burned out. But yeah, it was an amazing opportunity. I was a coach for Special Olympics, and somebody said, have you thought about being a special education teacher? And I said, no. But I applied, got my master's degree, and started teaching. I then ran a special education department in a large Title I school in Atlanta, and decided I wanted to get back into law. And so I moved to Denver, and I was deputy general counsel for a large school district here, and handled all their student affairs. And I started working on my PhD, and have a PhD in educational leadership and policy studies. Did a bunch of different work in policy and represented families of children with disabilities as a pro bono attorney. And then I am currently at Hop Skip Drive, where I'm the senior director of legal affairs and data privacy. And I promised Hop Skip Drive I would say my opinions are my own. They are not Hop Skip Drive. I do want to make sure I honor that and say I'm here today on my own, not on behalf of Hop Skip Drive. So
Absolutely. Yeah. This is a very interesting journey. I mean, but my question is, why you decided to be a lawyer? Why a legal path at all?
Well, it's so interesting. I always wanted to be a teacher, actually. And my parents wanted me to be a lawyer. And so from a very young age, my parents knew I liked to argue. And they were like, you need to be a lawyer. And I went to Emory University, which was a private school, and it was quite expensive. And so my parents, were very happy and supportive and wanted me to be there, and also recognized that it was quite an expensive school if I was going to become an educator. And so I wanted to stay at Emory. I loved it. I had so many amazing personal experiences. I came out when I was at Emory. I was on the debate team when I was at Emory, and so I honored my commitment, and I went to law school. So and I at the time, I was probably, when I was younger, I was like, oh, I can't believe I did this. But I'm so grateful now that I'm a lawyer, and find that it helped me not just in the law, but everything. When I was writing my dissertation, I could write much faster. I could read information at a faster speed and digest it. And so super happy I did. And I think I had to take the journey away for a while and do some other things, I think what's interesting about this podcast today is really is sort of about this idea of like, how do we stretch ourselves and how that helps us grow in ways we probably don't even recognize at the time.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned that law school helped you to become better, basically. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
But the path to it, it's not comfortable at all. I mean, so for us to grow, we need to stretch ourselves and go through the pain, through the like negative experiences and so on and so forth. So, can you share maybe some of these experiences, maybe in school, maybe in work?
Yeah. One of the things I noticed you talk a lot about in your work is resiliency. And I really do think law school teaches you resiliency. It teaches you that you keep going. There's going to be obstacles along the way. And even in my career, there were right. 2008, I get laid off from a market, and you have to figure out, okay, well, how do I reinvent myself, and what do I do? And law school teaches you, in my opinion, it's not a you learn the law, but it really teaches you how to think. And it teaches you how to think in a different way than you're used to, often a very linear way, right? You put everything together and go from A to Z. And the expectation is that you're prepared when you come to class, you're cold called, you're expected to know your cases backwards and forwards. And so, preparation and being ready is something that you had to do. And then when I worked in a law firm, people were paying you a lot of money, and they expected you to know what you were doing, and you worked long hours. And I am so grateful for the experiences that I got working in a law firm. They taught me everything, the foundational things that I know as a lawyer now, and it was the best training ground I ever had. And you get partners who you write a brief and they redline it, it's red, right? You argue a case in front of an appellate court, and they're just constantly pressuring you for questions. And it's an academic exercise. And so there's this, you have to be able to say, yeah, I got butchered on that, and now what do I do? And what did I learn out of that, and how do I make sure I don't do that again?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a power of growth mindset. So, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you probably share, like, the job that you had and you have now? It can be stressful, right?
Oh yeah.
And I mean, and how you balance this stressful work and your like how you staying sane with all of this and how you balance yourself like personal life. I mean, for each and one of us it's different balance. For someone it's like they so in love with what they do, entrepreneurs for example, yeah, they so pumped with this, so their balance is different. And for you, what is a balance for you in this work life?
Oh wow. Yeah. It depends on the day. Depends on the hour sometimes. Um, I think it has evolved for me particularly. I have had, and if you look at the arc of my career, in a lot of ways, there were periods that it was very high pressure and probably not a lot of balance. And then maybe it swung a little the opposite way, which was it probably wasn't pushing me enough to like feel growth. And then I felt stagnant. Where I am now, I work at a startup, and it's a late stage, high growth startup. And I never worked in that environment before. And so I've never been in that space. And I think for me, I have to keep perspective. And I would tell you, I'm not fantastic at it. I'm getting better at it. Um, some things I do to balance. I've been in recovery for 5 years, and so I have a lot of routines that I keep in my life that are very important to me. I wake up at 4 a.m. I pray, I meditate, I go to the gym, and I do some other things that are important to sort of get me in the right frame of mind for my day. Um, a lot of folks think that's bizarre, but for me, like I'm up and I'm ready and I'm setting the intention for my day. I try very hard to make time for my husband. Uh, dinner at night and on the weekends, I try as hard as I can to make space for that. And then I think the last thing is to just be willing to ask for help, to say I don't know what I'm doing, and to have people in your circle that you can reach out to. I, I've gotten much better about I'm not perfect. I just not perfect. And I have to sometimes just say, like, I don't know, like, what should I do here? And for a long time, even where my current job, I thought if somebody asked me a question, I had to know the answer immediately. And I would get this immense pressure. I was like, oh my God, I don't know the answer to this question. Well, I shouldn't probably, like, I don't know everything. And so I had to start, and our head of legal, has really helped shape that idea in my mind of just sort of asking for help. And when I get in periods where I don't ask for help, it's painful. It's just you feel like you are swimming upstream and there's just like no relief in sight.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that you wake up so early. How you decided to do that?
It's actually, I believe, I believe the universe does things for you. So I lived in Atlanta for 24 years. And so I moved out to Denver, which was 2 hours behind. And so when I moved to Denver, I stayed on Atlanta time. And so I
Mm,
used to get up at 6 and I got up at 4. And it just felt right. The sun comes up early here. It's really sunny. Um, I also got sober here. And so I learned that here praying and meditating in the morning is important. And so I had to find space. Um, my day is generally not my own. My calendar is pretty full. And so you have to make decisions, and you have to say, I'm willing to get up a little earlier to do those things that are going to set me up for a successful day. And when I don't do it, I know it. My day is off. I'm off. When I pray and meditate, like I have a space that I can breathe and pause when making, when working. And I think the most stress that I experience is when I don't take that pause and think, and I'm just reacting, 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 reacting.
mm,
My cortisol levels are up, right? Like when you're at that level, I've learned this through, therapy and trauma work. Like if you're at that level, there's not a lot you can do, because it's physical at that point, right? It's all these hormones, stress hormones that are in your body. And so I have to do everything I can to like keep it down. And if it gets too high, I have to literally walk away from my computer and take a 20-minute walk, or walk away from my computer, maybe take a jog to really get
mhm.
those hormones processing out of my system.
This is nice one in terms of like what you learned about your body, how it reacts. Yeah, it's not like we can learn not on our mistakes. We try, but you know, we can read the book and we can remember, and we will be pumped for 2 weeks. But then let's go on, and you're like, okay, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then you make the same mistake and same mistake, and yeah, we learn on our mistakes the best, sadly. But yeah. Okay, so you mentioned meditation, and what
Mhm.
about physical activities? Do you
Yeah.
do some?
Oh yeah. I live in Colorado. It's funny. Friends come and visit, and they're like, "There's this frenzy in Colorado to be outdoors," and I mean, it's
Mm,
here, and we're just
it's
an
beautiful, right?
yeah, it's an outdoor place. The mountains ground me. I love to hike, and hike big mountains like 14,000 feet plus above sea level. So I go to the gym and work out. I love to run. I'm training for a marathon right now. Um, I also like to just walk. Now, my walk is not exercise walk. Like it's a really slow walk, just kind of like not just looking around, not paying a lot of attention. And so physically that's important. I'll also tell you that what I eat is huge impact on my mental state. And I used to not realize it, but When I get hungry, I'm just not in a good place. And it's probably the one area I have a lot of work to do is that I sit down at my desk and I don't get up, and it's 3 o'clock and I'm like, I haven't had lunch yet, which is just terrible, horrible from a physical, perspective. And so I have to watch things like that. But my husband and I both stay active. I'm learning to ski this year. Not a big fan of it, but I'm going to try it. And so in the winter, it tends to be more like the gym and swimming and things like that.
Mhm. Okay, so what about like your mental strategies? I mean, you as you are a person of the law, right? So you are structured. You have probably very good memory, and you have frameworks and systems. So can you share some of them that you use maybe on daily basis, maybe just some
Yeah.
days when you make decisions, big one, small one?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I would tell you that the strategies I use mentally, almost all of them have come from work I've done around trauma, um, and EMDR, and some strategies I learned there that I'll share. Um, one big one for someone like me is recognizing that when I'm in a stressful situation, I'm not in danger. So when I, as a lawyer, am in a high stress situation, I think to act very fast. Some of that is a result of the reactions of folks that I'm working with, right? We handle sensitive things, and so there's this, it impacts the company in some way. But there's pieces of it too, which are I encounter situations, and so I'm sort of thrust back into an environment from very early on in my life that I have that sort of, oh my gosh, I have to have a response right now, and this is dangerous. It's not. And so I have mental strategies where I, have to tell myself, you're safe. This is okay. You don't need to react this way. The Another strategy I have is that I work very hard to to listen more, and I'm still learning this strategy. Listen much more to what's happening and to question my perception of what's happening. An example could be, I'm in a meeting and someone is speaking and reacting in a way, and I take that as something personal, or I take that as an indication of what's going on, and I have to stop myself and just say, that's not what is happening here, and really focus on, paying acute attention to what's going on around me. And I'll be honest, some of the most painful things of my life have made me the best lawyer, advocate, professor, researcher. Like every aspect of my life, learning from those experiences have, I think, differentiated me in ways that, I can relate to people. Um, and I'm so grateful that I had that perspective, because if you think about it, a lot of the mental strategies come from trauma informed practices, and all the things you're talking about, which have roots in the law. But to be frank, law school doesn't do a good job of talking about taking care of your mind and body. So
Yeah, I mean, it's more like it's more like trauma that you need to work on, but without that, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, you need some hurdles in your life to understand where you want to go, how you want to proceed, and so on. So it's complicated stuff, and actually, what I've seen working with different types of people, the most people who are the most creative people, they have wonderful imagination and so on, but they react more because they like see the problem and they imagine how this problem can hurt them or their companies, and they imagine stuff, a lot of it, and they react, and they are like it's very hard on them. And but they are creative. This is their good thing and the bad thing at the same
yeah,
time. Yeah. So absolutely agree with you. Our our hurdles in our life can help us be better if we know what to do with it, how
Yeah.
to analyze it, how to grow through it. And what you mentioned, like, yeah, I know this thing about me and I work on that. So this is what important. Don't stop doing this all our lives, because some people, they're like, oh, I'm too old for this. I don't care anymore. And so on. Come on. Are you 100 years old? No, not yet. So you still need to be better and go on. I suppose it helps us to go on and live longer. Okay.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I would just add one thing. I notice when I get bored, because I know what I'm doing, I'm generally the worst lawyer. Like I just,
mm.
well, I mean that like I'm just complacent, right? It's just this thing I kind of know about, and when I stretch myself into areas that make me really uncomfortable, you know, learning privacy, for example, in today's world, super uncomfortable. Like folks are coming to me now asking about AI, and I'm like, we don't even know what AI all is, right? And so if you shy away from those areas where you don't know something and you're afraid, I'm going to make a mistake, I'm not going to be perfect. People are going to be asking a lot of questions that I don't know the answers to, and I have to give advice. You're not going to grow and become resilient. But those are the spaces that I've learned the most in.
Absolutely. Yeah, wonderful. And let's talk about personal and professional growth. How
Yeah.
you work on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I talked a lot about the personal, so probably, all the things that I mentioned.
Mhm.
I think constantly being connected to personal growth, so not sitting on my laurels and saying, "Oh, well, I've done this and I've done that, and I'm good." But to always be willing to grow along those lines is important. Professionally, I think it's for me thinking 3 steps ahead. What I love about being in house is that I constantly have to be thinking 3 to 5 steps ahead about what's happening. So I might be asked a question about this, but I have to think about, okay, well, how does that impact this team or this decision or some long-term strategy that we have? And so professionally, I'm constantly trying to stay ahead of the curve so that I know what's coming. And I do that in a couple of different ways. I'm very curious and very involved with my coworkers and what they do, and I want to know what they do. Um, I'm a, I like being a lawyer and I like what I do and I'm good at it because I want to know what other folks are doing on their team because it helps me get better advice. And so curiosity has been key to my professional growth. And I think the other thing is knowing where some things are going and anticipating them. When I joined my current company, I said I want to do the data privacy work. I want to build out the program. And so you are the master of your own destiny. And now I
Oh,
firmly believe that. And so if you're sitting and waiting for someone else to come and help you, I mean, people will help you, but if you're not out there wanting to figure out like the next thing and be curious, then you're going to become that person you mentioned, which is you just kind of go along and you give the same advice. And I notice with those people, they lack an energy. Like there's just like
100%.
energetic feeling that just feels very static and flat. Whereas those people who are curious, it's like this energy that you actually want to hang out with them and talk to them and grow yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And people, like, first of all, they want to be know-it-all. You know what I mean? So they like, I've been there, I done that. Now the world spinning so fast, you like, you're learning something every day, just a portion of it, just a portion that you dig into. And how you can know everything? You cannot physically, it's not possible. I mean, maybe in 50 years we're gonna have this AI in us. So
Yeah, yeah.
probably I'm not sure about privacy in that. Probably not at all. But yeah, it's so fast. Every day, every like news, research, and so on. So, um, and people who know it all, how you can talk to them even. It's incredibly hard to talk to these people, and you like it's almost draining energy from you. So yeah, always learning, always moving on, and being curious is it's wonderful. What you mentioned, curiosity, always be a child, always ask why. So it's
Yes.
wonderful. Okay, so you mentioned that you trying to like learn what your colleagues doing, how it works for you. I mean, um team meetings or one-on-ones, how you ask them, but not being nosy, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is it has to be built into the culture. So I think I've worked at companies where it's very much not built into the culture, which is don't bother so and so, right? Your lane is this, and that's what you're expected to do. And so I think part of it's culture. A company that builds curiosity in that healthy way, right? That I think they're the companies that are the most successful because they're building people that have that desire to understand not just what they do, but the impact of their work on some other team. And, tying this back to the legal world, the law is gray. If the law was black and white, lawyers would not have jobs, right? Like the law is intentionally vague for a reason. And so everything I do is fact dependent, and to your point of asking questions, someone will come to me with a question and I usually have about 15 questions before I want to give some advice. And so if you don't understand, for example, the product you're working with, um, my company, if I don't understand the platform or the technology that's being used and how data is coming in and out and why data is coming in and out and where it's being stored and why it's being stored, if I don't understand any of that, I can't give good legal advice. Now, I think you do it a couple ways. I think we tend to have cross collaborative meetings. So a lot of meetings on things that I'm working on involve stakeholders across multiple groups. And so I think that inherently builds in this idea of learning. I think my team, we have weekly meetings with the departments that we support regularly, like product council regularly meets with the product team and the supply team and other teams. And, my corporate council routinely meets with sales. And it's this check-in to make sure that, they're learning, but also everyone's moving so fast, communication can get really sideways and you're trying to just stay up with it. And so I think that's it. And then the final thing is every meeting doesn't have to be tell me about a product, but it's just conversation and getting to know folks and developing that personal rapport with folks. And then you develop this relationship that they want to meet with you and talk to you because they know you care about them as a person, you have empathy, you're someone they want to be around. And so then it becomes less about, oh, I have to go to this meeting with legal, but oh, I'm having an opportunity to meet with Steven. We usually start just talking about nothing about a project and then we dive into the work.
Hmm. So it's personalized experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. And you mentioned this culture of communication. This is big problem in scale ups because what I've seen, like when it's startup, it's cozy, it's nice. You're the team. You've been through MVP. You've been through fundraising. You've stayed and so on. But then you found this product market fit, and it's a good problem, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
but operations and hiring and new people coming and new people, I mean, it was 5 to 10 people and now it's 30,
Yep.
and it's very hard to stay this tight knit team who communicate with who are open to anything and so on. So because each person came with his own culture inside, and culture borrowed from company he or she works before. So it's incredibly hard to keep this communication flowing and talk about anything and share things and be innovative and so on and so forth. But you don't have time for that. In terms of, like, if you founder, you need to run, not walk, because you scaling, because your board wants you to show revenues and so on. So it's incredibly hard period of time in any business, in tech especially. So that you mentioned that you have this, it's incredible, and I'm very happy for your company, actually. So all right, and you mentioned privacy, and this is a big part of our life, and it comes bigger and bigger. Some people
Mhm.
say, I'm okay to live in China, but because it's convenient for me, okay, no privacy, but it's convenient and so on. So what is your take on that and on our future in terms of AI privacy? Because yeah, it's so convenient to use ChatGPT, but I understand that privacy, not so much. So what do you think about that?
um, so I think if I understand you correctly on the first part of the question, is it just about um, being comfortable with the amount of information that's being shared,
I mean, yeah, we share a lot of information,
right?
and it's easier for us to push accept button. I
Yes.
mean, so but what is your take on that, like what this conveniency will bring us in
Yeah.
several years?
Yeah, I think it's a personal decision. So, interestingly, I think the market dictates your comfort level with privacy. So, to your point earlier, if there's a product that has a market fit and folks want it, they're more likely to sacrifice personal information and be comfortable with it. I also think there's a point in, like, a tipping point for folks who think, listen, I've been doing this for so long. I've been sharing personal information. There's been data breaches all over, right? And at some point, some folks just say, my information is probably out there everywhere. It's going to be out there. And I'm comfortable that I have enough safety mechanisms in place, whether that be, alerts on your credit report, or you feel like your systems are secure and your passwords are secure, and you know your information. And so for those folks, it's easy because they really are consumers who want whatever's being offered and feel that if you weigh the scale, and this is my job every day to when I provide guidance, you weigh the scale and you say, the benefit I get from clicking that click box outweighs any concern I have. Then you have the other side of it, which is my information is very personal. I don't want it shared. I don't want anybody to have it. Any information that's shared about me is a privacy violation. And for those individuals, I think what I would say is I respect and agree that that is a paradigm that is correct and should be respected. It probably means there are sacrifices in terms of technology, access to resources, and a lot of other things that they're going to have to make in order to sort of say that. And so I think it's just where folks are in their comfort level um, with it and how much they want it.
But in terms of future regulations, and we see some countries doing something. I mean, in European Union, it's probably more strict now.
Yeah.
And what do you think? Where are we gonna be in several years with all of that?
Yeah. I think the United States is gonna be adopting a policy similar to what you see in GDPR and other Canada and Asia. There'll be some national policy on it. I, I overwhelmingly think, and maybe this is just because I'm in the privacy space so much, is that I don't particularly find the regulations onerous. I think that they are provide safeguards, but I don't think they largely change the landscape. And I'll give you a good example. If you're in Europe, I don't know that most folks are thinking about their data any differently than we are in the United States, even though GDPR has a very different, structure, and it's, opt in and all of these sorts of things. I think it's harder for the businesses to operate. But I don't think it's going to make a lot of difference because so many regulations have started to align on requirements. And, California is a good example where a lot of the similarities between them have come to be. And so it's become a little bit seamless in terms of coming into compliance. And so I think you're going to see a national privacy regulations in the United States. I think we're going to see some AI regulations. I don't think the AI regulations are going to have a ton of teeth. I think there's going to be a lot of aspirational statements in them. I just don't think we can keep up with the speed at which it's happening. And I'm probably in a camp, and people will disagree with me, but the train's left the station. So, what you do as a company and what you do is, I think folks should think about, what they're putting in a chat GPT and what that means, because it is going to be out there. But just as well, the moment you click the cookie button and consent, probably some of the very similar information is out there. And so I think it just depends. Now, as a company, I obviously have to be very diligent, and talking to the company about, we don't want our code, right? You don't want your code ingested. You don't want trade secrets ingested. You don't want customer info. There's some things companies have to do on the AI front that look very different than what a consumer might be clicking a box and doing it. And that, I think, is challenging for companies to figure out.
Yeah, for sure. With AI, I'm with you. I don't think we can keep up with that because people so desperately want that, and they don't care. And I don't care. Basically, I am the person who don't care. I mean, people don't care. So,
Yeah, I mean,
and
it's in everything. I think people don't realize AI is in way more than they know. A good example is, I was doing a LinkedIn post, and there was a little thing that said, "Would you like AI to rewrite your LinkedIn post for you?" Right? It's just integrated into everything. And so, I think companies, even, you can't say we're never going to use AI. You have to develop good baseline policies that protect the information while still recognizing that, if you're in the tech space, you're going to miss out on some really important technology that's going to help you scale at the rate that you're talking about if you say we can't use AI.
but it doesn't matter if you're in tech or not. You
That's
miss out if you're not using it, if you're not learning it, and so on. Because if we're talking about performance of any person, entrepreneur or professional, you can do things faster, you can do things cheaper, and so on. So if you're not using it, you miss out. That's it. I mean, yeah.
I don't disagree. I tell my doctoral students this all the time, like, use it to help you. Don't write your dissertation
Yes.
with it, but use it to help research or to learn something you don't know about. Fantastic. It's like the best encyclopedia out there. I
I'm
used to have
using
a
it
whole
for
bunch.
research,
Yeah,
for writing articles. But it's like writing some weird stuff.
yeah,
But I'm always consistently asking, like, give me links, give me links, give me links, and then it's actually very helpful. I'm not I'm not using Google anymore. I mean, I'm using ChatGPT.
yeah,
Just because it's faster, sometimes it's glitching, but it's anyway it's faster.
oh,
So it's
absolutely.
more structured. It's more like, and it's learning. It's going better and better and better. So very
Absolutely.
soon, it will be much better than now. All right. So let's talk about your, like, what would you recommend, or piece of advice that you will give people who are, for example, entrepreneurs who are think about this privacy matters, and what would you advise them where would you advise them to go, and to whom you advise to talk, in terms of this privacy, especially if this is a startup founders who don't actually have much resources?
Mhm.
What they should do?
So I would say two things. I would say first, um, you have to do this early on. If you are trying to unwind some issues with privacy after you've scaled quite a bit and your product is far along, it's going to be really painful for you to do it. Um, IAP is a wonderful resource. It's iapp.org. That's where I got my SIP US and SIP EU certification. Amazing resources there. Talk to folks. Like, I really think that people have this misconception that this privacy stuff is hard. Like, here is the little secret that I'll say: it's not that hard. It's not that hard. It's not as
Many
scary.
lawyers right now probably not so happy with you.
I imagine they're not. And I mean to say that, like, you have to have the expertise, but it, it's not as it's really soft. Like, they say things like you have to have reasonable safeguards. Well, what are reasonable safeguards? We really don't know. And so I just mean to say, like, don't be scared by it and feel like you have to go pay millions of dollars to folks to understand privacy. You don't. I would say also just talk to people who are in the space. Um, and then finally, I do think you need a privacy professional who can give you good advice. I struggle, as a lawyer who is in house. I've hired a lot of lawyers who we pay a lot of money to, and we don't get good business advice. And so, the advice I would give lawyers who might, be thinking about this and thinking about the in-house perspective is that, giving me a 20-page memo on the privacy law, it's not what we need. It's not what a startup needs. I need the practical business understanding. And, here are the three biggest wins you can make if, at this stage of your startup to be successful.
Mm. Nice one. Thank you so much, and for sharing everything and not holding back on us. And it was wonderful to talk to you. And well, thank you for your time because
Well,
I
thank
know you're a
you.
very busy person.
You are as well. And I truly mean, I'm humbled. I view life as, I learn from everyone. And so I learned so much from you. I learned
Thanks.
more about just who I am as a person with every conversation. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who's watching, and have a great, great day. Bye bye.